All right, 5:15 as we do every Tuesday. We welcome in our NFL Insider, our good friend Lloyd Vance, for Vance's view on this Tuesday edition of BYP. How are you?
Doing good, Q. The week of the backup quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching Mike White, and I thought I was watching Matt Robinson from years ago, many moons ago, with the Jets. And then how about Cooper Rush doing his best, Clint Longley the other night for the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, what backup performance, and then you got Simeon, too, in New Orleans. Which one stood out the most?
Well, all three of them did a great job. But Cooper Rush, he did a tremendous job on Sunday Night Football. Let's never get that on the road. Dak could not get going. They weren't even sure if Dak was going to play, not going to play. He did the pregame warm-ups, and then they give the Rush the ball. But Dallas believed in him, and he was not afraid to drive the football down the field. And that throw at the end of the game to Cooper in the back of the end zone, that was a big-time throw, and it was a big road win for Dallas. And you have to think that they're not only looking good in the division, but in the conference as well.
Yeah, I was waiting for that line. I thought the line would have moved another half a point, catch it at like 4.5. I thought that's where it would sit, so I didn't even play the game. But you bring up the rest of the conference. I mean, think about this, right? Arizona loses to Green Bay to kick off Week 8 on Thursday Night Football. Tampa Bay, I mean, I don't get it. You're a defending Super Bowl champs, man. You got a pretty good defense. How in the world do you turn around and you lose to the Saints? And then going back to what you just mentioned, that Minnesota and Dallas game, if you're Minnesota, you have defensive players that are coming out saying, well, we really didn't plan for Cooper Rush, which is right on the head coaching. But the NFC right now, I got the Rams still as the best team in the conference, and then I got the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, it's very top-heavy in the NFC, and it's going to be tough for a team that does not have a very good record to get into playoffs right now. I still have Arizona at the top, even though they were lackluster in that game that they lost on Thursday night, going all the way back there. But they should probably have beaten Green Bay. But Green Bay is just hanging around, stacking the W's. They're the head in the north by far. And then Tampa Bay, as you were saying, that was a huge moment for them. Tom Brady, it seems that the Saints are just his kryptonite. He just had that very bad pick six to P.J. Williams at the end. You just always thought that the Bucs were going to turn it around if they would win this game, especially after Jameis went out. But the Saints somehow believed, and Trevor Simeon comes out with the W.
Yeah, you mentioned top-heavy. Green Bay, Arizona, Dallas, Tampa, the Rams. 7-1, 7-1, 6-1, 6-2, 7-1, respectively. And then you got the Saints there at 5-2. I mean, I was talking a little bit before the break. I guess Phillip Rivers was potentially waiting for a call from New Orleans. I mean, what direction do you think the Saints go? A quarterback. I mean, do they even make a call to say Cam Newton?
Well, I was just talking to somebody down there, and then Sean Payton, he believes in Simeon. He believes that Taysom Hill's going to be able to come back from his concussion. I think he may come off of the IR this week with that situation, and they're going to see. But he's going to ride with these guys, and he believes in his game plan. So they bring Mark Ingram back from Houston in a trade, and then they pair him with Kamara, and they'll just make some timely throws. And maybe Michael Thomas can come back as well. But the way their defense is playing, with Marcus Davenport and all that guys in the secondary, they can get after some people and just win some games ugly.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, I love when a quarterback goes down, right away people are like, sign this guy. You already got guys in the system. You got guys that have worked up a sweat and they got reps. You stick with them, right? Bringing in a guy like Rivers or unretired or Cam Newton who hasn't thrown a football. I mean, to me, it makes no sense. They're not going to be active for another week or so. And you look at the Saints, next couple games coming up. Falcons, at the Titans with no Henry, and then at the Eagles. So you got three very winnable games that if they can just get through those games before they take on the Bills and then the Cowboys, they'd be sitting pretty at 8-2.
Yeah, and they believe that with Taysom Hill, they're just going to go run heavy and just try to shorten the game, use Kamara to his ability. He's getting a ton of touches every game. And then the receivers, these guys are just nondescript, but they're making catches here and there. And then defensively, they're really winning the turnover battle. So they're a team, as you're saying, they're just trying to keep treading water. And then when you look at these other backups out, the potential backups out there, you're right. A lot of coaches just want to go with the guy that knows their system And then, it takes two to tango, as I like to say. So it's going to be interesting to see if Cam can finally get an opportunity. But right now it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I don't understand why Deshaun Jackson wanted his release. It makes zero sense. He hasn't been a productive wide receiver since 2016-17. You're talking 4 years ago. They got playmakers. You got a legitimate shot to make a deep run into the playoffs and win a Super Bowl, right? Wasn't with the Eagles, wasn't with Tampa Bay. So it's like, all right, you missed those votes and opportunities. Why not kind of be like a Shady McCoy? You just go along for the ride. I mean, it's like the ego and I want to pad the stats. To me, it makes zero sense.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Him and McCoy came in together with the Eagles, and, McCoy embraced this opportunity to chase a ring. And the thing is with Deshaun, he can become a malcontent if he's not getting his touches. And he seems to be healthy, and he just doesn't seem to be on the same page with Sean McVay. Now, they've had another injury with Tua Atwell, and they may keep him. So they're talking about maybe releasing him, and he's subject to waivers. He does make a pretty good salary, so you wonder if anybody pick him up on waivers. But it's going to be interesting to see if he becomes a free agent or they hold on to him.
You look at last night, and you see the way the Chiefs and the Giants game unfolded. I equate Patrick Mahomes to like Steph Curry in Golden State, right? When they're on, but then sometimes they kind of like get goofy, and it's sloppy basketball. Kansas City sometimes plays sloppy football. Even look at the mechanics when he's throwing in the pocket, when he's scrambling. I mean, it's all great for highlights, the sidearm and the no look, but some of it's unnecessary. He really looked out of sync. Now, I know the Giants defense played much better last night, but are these fixable problems? Can the Chiefs still salvage their season?
Sure. I mean, they're still in the mix at 4-4. We know the AFC's really wide open at this point, but that was an ugly watch last night. And as you were saying, he has an interception that's called back for a penalty, luckily for him. He has a fumble. One of his teammates jumps on it, and he just was out of sorts. This offensive line is not doing a good job protecting him. Surprisingly, other than Tyreek Hill, who got targeted like 20 times last night, nobody else was getting open. Travis Kelce at 32, you got to wonder, is he slowing down? Didn't have many catches, and he had that huge fumble in the game. So, a lot of moving pieces on his team that need to be fixed. And you're right, Andy Reid, the veteran coach, everybody said he's going to Hall of Fame, former Super Bowl winner now. He's got a lot to fix. It's Steve Spagnuolo's defense. They aren't getting any heat on the quarterback. I know they got some hits at the end of the game to close it out, but they were getting the ball moved up and down the field, and the Giants just couldn't punch it in. So, ugly win for them, and they'll just try to keep going.
I was impressed with the Steelers. They had to make it an ugly game against Cleveland. Credit Mayfield for coming out and playing hurt. They got the issues with Beckham, their offense. I don't think they ran the ball as successful as they wanted to. But, they still fall to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh now 4-3. I thought that was a game-saving win, or a season-saving win, I should say, for the Steelers.
Steelers down 4-3, and they're just hanging around. And Mike Tomlin just preaches state. Of course, Big Ben plays so well in Ohio, whether it's against Cleveland or Cincinnati, and that was a big win for him at 15-10. I thought that play with the kicker, that could have came to bite them, but he has a concussion. They have nobody to kick, and they're going for these extra points, 2-point conversions, and it worked out for them because of their defense. T.J. Watt is really getting after people, earning his money. And then you have Mike Fitzpatrick in the back. He's just making a lot of plays as well. So, the Steelers, as we were saying, they want to play Steelers football with their defense. And then Najee Harris had 91 yards and a touchdown. So, good young player coming along there. And Big Ben, they're limiting him. He's not going to throw the ball a lot. And Chase Claypool's going to make plays here and there.
Yeah, you're talking about the Boswell. They lost him for the entire second half with that concussion. The fake field goal could have came back, as you mentioned, to bite him in the butt. And Tomlin, by his own admission, said it was a stupid play. It was a bad play. And sometimes you get a little too cute, a little too smart for yourself. So, yeah, as you alluded to, nice win by Pittsburgh, salvaging their season. I thought the Titans going into Indianapolis, Carson Wentz, I've been praising his play all season long. I tweeted it out, and then I think I mushed him with the 2 picks. The one is just inexplicable, and then he magnifies that by throwing a bad pick in overtime, which ultimately leads to a field goal by the Titans. They get the win on the road in OT 34-31, but it comes with a price, losing Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't been on Wentz wagon for some time, and you know, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then sure enough, he threw that horrible pass to Alex Molden. He tried to put it in his left hand and lobs it up there, and next thing you know, it's going back for the pick six, and that really turned the game. Luckily, they got it to overtime, but then Kevin Byard gets a pick in overtime, and you know, they have a short turnaround now. They got to play on Thursday against a hungry Jets team, as crazy as that sounds, and they need to get this win. So, you know, this division is still kind of there for the taking. I know Tennessee has a pretty good record and a lead, but you're talking about Henry. They lose him. They bring in Adrian Peterson and Dante Foreman. You know, we'll see what these guys have left, but that's a huge part of their offense. Henry was getting about 30 touches a game, and he was on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record. He had 937 yards before getting hurt.
Every time I really want to buy into the Chargers, they give me these types of efforts. They get roasted by Baltimore on the road, and then they lose the game against the Patriots where, you know, they should have won that game. They had ample opportunities to win that game. They had the bad pick six. Okay, it happens sometimes with a young quarterback. We saw they were scoring all these points early on, the last couple weeks, 6 and 24 respectively. Now they got to go on the road against the Eagles that, you know, they got a little confidence from Wax in Detroit. But what's your thoughts right now on the Chargers?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. It's going to be a desperation ball out there. And everybody wants to Noyd Herbert and move him into that MVP race. But as you're saying, he is a young guy out there. Eckler, a guy who gets a little dinged up, and they really don't seem to be getting the ball to Keenan Allen and there are other weapons out there. And defensively, Derwin James and Bosa are making some plays out there, but just something's amiss with them. Adrian Phillips got revenge. He had 2 interceptions, a former Charger, and, you know, it's Belichick confusing once again a younger quarterback. And, you know, the Patriots are in the mix of 4-4, and we'll see what the Chargers can do from here, because this division is going to be kind of open. You talk about the Raiders situation now with Ruggs and Fascia as the interim head coach, and you know it's going to be it's the Wild West out there. We're going to see who's going to come out of that division.
Yeah, and they'll take on the Giants, the Raiders on the road. They're laying 2.5 in that game, which most likely would be another Giant debacle. Week 9 kicks off Thursday night. A lot of people think the Jets will come back down to earth. They're 10.5-point dogs. That's amazing. They're 10.5-point dogs on the road against Indianapolis after they beat a very good Cincinnati team. Forget about public perception. People still think the Jets stink. It's not going to shock me if they come back down to earth, but the Colts still need this game. I mean, they're 3-5. They're not good at home. They're 1-3, so they cannot overlook the Jets, because look what happened when Cincinnati did that.
Yeah, this is going to be a competitive football game, and the Jets, you know, Robert Saleh, he's trying to build his program there, and they just showed that they believe in the team and everybody, all the pieces around him. You know, a lot of no-name type of players, but Mike White, as you're saying, he's going to get another opportunity on national TV to show that he's a player. And then the Colts, they'd be smart to have Taylor just run the football. I mean, he's really running downhill for him, calling up a lot of yards, and then Pittman making some plays down the field. Defensively, they got to do a better job, though.
Again, these lines are pretty high. Denver and the Cowboys laying 9.5. Even the Texans-Miami game, you got a battle 1-7 squads, and Miami's laying 6.5. Here's an interesting game. Saints are a 6-point favorite. Total number is 42.5 at home against the Falcons. Now, I think people were looking at the Falcons and said, hey, you know what? They righted the ship. They beat the Jets and they beat Miami, but then they fell back down to earth against the Panthers. So instead of being 4-3, you flip it. They're 3-4. So if they have any aspirations of trying to claim that 7th seed, they got to figure out a way to win against the Saints. And I think, to your point, the Saints just want to get by Sunday unscathed. It doesn't matter if they win 7-6. Who cares? A win gets them to 6-2.
Yeah, and Atlanta is a very competitive team. They were in that game. Stephon Gilmore interception for Carolina. And Carolina, right now, they'd be the 7th seed if the playoffs started. So it's a huge divisional matchup in this game. And we'll see if Trevor Siemian is looking like he may be the guy once again for the Saints. Is able to protect the football. And then they need to lean on Kamara and just have him make some big plays. And then defensively, I think that the Falcons' line's pretty beat up. They should be able to get after the quarterback. And then Matt Ryan at his age is going to turn the football over here and there. So I think the Saints win another ugly one very close.
Buffalo's laying in 14.5. This is probably my look but don't touch game. But I look at Jacksonville, and obviously they started out 0-5. Then they got the win against Miami, and then they went on the road and they lost to Geno Smith, of all people, in Seattle. They've got the Bills, the Colts, the 49ers, the Falcons, the Rams, the Titans, the Texans, the Jets, the Pats, the Colts. I see maybe one more win, and that could be potentially against the Jets. If they go 1-16, you think Meyer turns around and says, you know what, this ain't for me?
I don't know if it's going to be his decision or Shad Khan's the owner down there. Shad Khan may have had enough, and, he does look disinterested. And, this is hard in the National Football League. It's not so easy, and Trevor Lawrence is out there competing, and you have some other young guys still trying to get done, like Miles Jack on the defensive side. But, this is a tough one to kind of look at. That's a lot of points to lay 14.5. Buffalo kind of toyed around with Miami and then turned it on at the end. But, I'll say that they might cover that. I'd say it's going to be very difficult. I wouldn't take it, but, they might be able to cover that number, get a late pick or something. That definitely puts it in their favor.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When ownership comes out and they endorse the head coach, that tells me the head coach is I don't know, man. It's not a good fit. It's just not. And like I said, I go back to the draft. They should have drafted a tackle instead of a running back. It was unfortunate that the kid got hurt. But I think Lawrence is going to be a player. But I don't think Urban Meyer is the right head coach for that team.
Yeah, he's not going to be there to see the maturation of Trevor Lawrence. And they need a lot of pieces, as you were kind of alluding to. So, I was actually surprised that they weren't a little bit more active in the trade deadline, kind of like what Denver's doing, stockpiling some picks and kind of living for next season.
Yeah, you're right. In Denver with the big move trade, the Rams, I should say, for Von Miller, basically telling the rest of the league, we're going for it, which is the smart play. Now, they'll host the Titans on Sunday Night Football. We'll get to that game in a moment. You got Green Bay and Kansas City. This is even right now. I love the Packers on the road in this spot.
Yeah, and you have to look at the way that the coaches are coaching, the quarterbacks are playing at this point, and I would agree with you because I would grab that at even because Aaron Rodgers will find a way to win this game. They're going to get back Allen Lazard. He's getting on the same page with Cobb. He was making some plays, and they're running the football with Dillon and the other running back there. So, they're a dangerous team, and we just talked about Casey earlier. There's just something amiss there, and they're other than Tyreek Hill, no one's really making plays. Patrick Mahomes, very dangerous with the football, and their offensive line's not blocking anybody. So I will go with the Packers in that one.
The same 425 window, Arizona against the 49ers. That game currently right now is at even total numbers 45. I just, every time, my buddy's a big-time 49ers fan, and I kind of laugh because I always text him, this is the week. This is the week that Jimmy G gets benched. And then you saw, he played with a little guts and a little gumption and actually put up some really nice numbers the other day. Fields made a couple nice throws and a nice play with his legs to tell me that he's probably going to be the quarterback going forward with Chicago. But I always get the sense that Jimmy G is on borrowed time in San Francisco.
Yeah, and they moved up to get Trey Lance for a reason. But you're right, Jimmy G had a really good effort in the last week in winning that game against Chicago. And then Deebo Samuel put up a ton of yards in the game, and he's a playmaker. And then Arizona on the other side, you look at Kyler Murray, his ankles really banged up, and you just wonder who's going to be healthy for them, and they're coming off a bad loss. So, I think Murray will be out there. This is a tough divisional battle. Somehow I think the Cardinals will win in a very close game, but if the number's pretty high, I would take San Francisco. Yeah, I think it's a field goal game.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up with Murray and his injury. And you mentioned Elijah Mitchell ran for $137. What do you make of that Thursday night loss? I mean, I watched it again in real time with A.J. Green, and I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing? Like, he's not even paying attention to the last play of the game. And, listen, I get you want to take a shot there if you're Arizona, but you didn't need the touchdown. You just didn't. You could have forced overtime and then, kind of play it out like that. But that's a veteran wide receiver, and it looked like he was not paying attention at the most critical moment of the game.
Yeah, it was a situation you're like, all right, they're going to win this game ugly, and then they're going to continue being undefeated. it's just that season, and we see it a lot of times with teams when they get on a roll, they find crazy ways to win games. But, you're right. They were on the same page there. I was surprised he didn't go to one of his other favorite targets out there. And, A.J. Green didn't look for the ball, and then Rasul Douglas, which is crazy, a former Eagle, and guys bounced around the league. He has a pretty good pick to end the game.
Yeah, I mean, his timing was perfect in that regard. And then finally, you got the Titans and the Rams. So this is a really nice clash. The number is 53, juiced to the over 53.5. The Rams right now laying 7.5, and I think that's because of the acquisition they made and the fact that Henry's not going to be there. I mean, that's tough for the Titans because they're not going to be able to really run the football at all, and I think they're going to try to throw it against this Rams defense. That front four gets pressure on Tannehill, and I can see this being an ugly game.
Yeah, Q. They're going to have Ramsey shadowing Brown in this game, and Julio Jones in that hamstring. I just don't know what he's going to be able to contribute at this point. So, they're going to lay on the pass, and that offensive line has been kind of beat up with Taylor Lewan. I know they've gotten him back, and this is a tough assignment for them with Von Miller and Aaron Donald, the rest of those guys, and I think the Rams will get after him. That half a point is a little scary. If you can kind of tease that down, I think they definitely could cover a touchdown.
All right, lastly, I hate to close with this before we get to the Lackey and the game balls, but the story with Henry Ruggs III, now facing DUI charges. It looks like it's 2 to 20 years if convicted. Not a good look, not a good spot. I never understood why these players, these athletes that have so much money, they got that card by the NFL issued out to contact if they need a ride, or why not just pay someone to drive you somewhere? That's just, the Raiders, they've had a lot of issues this season thus far off the field, and this has to be a major distraction because there's a loss of life.
Yeah, they're going to have to, if we keep talking about football terms, they got to figure out a way to just keep going. But, it's more and more, and you have to wonder when finally something's going to break the dam for this team. It's a tough situation, and they're going to probably try to close ranks even further and move on. But, that's a key loss for them. It's a guy that's their deep threat. He was a first-round draft pick, and we'll see how they see if they can bounce back this week. They're coming off their bye. And a lot of times teams, when there's a bye, they always wonder if something bad's going to happen with a player, and unfortunately it did.
Yeah, it did, and football is going to be the furthest from his mind because his days might be pretty much up like that in the NFL, even though my producer brought up a good point. We saw this with Stallworth as well, so he was given a second chance. But at the end of the day, look, he got loss of life, and I just never understood. Don't get in the car if you've been driving. I'm gonna take a stab at your Lackey, and I didn't see this, and I think it's going to be Sexy Ginger. Is it Carson Wentz?
It is. Those two picks were just egregious. And that one, Elijah Molden, that's one of those ones, like I coached Pee Wee football a couple years ago, and my quarterback, I would have told him, no way, don't even try to throw that ball, and he sure tried to, and that turned the game. He actually wasn't playing too bad before that. He had 3 touchdowns in the game, and, they were battling a division rival. But, that bad pick at the end of the game, he gets the overtime, and then he has another one at Bayard, and they're able to kick the game on the field goal. So he's my Lackey of this week. You know
what? That game reminded me, I think it was the 2009 NFC wildcard game, the Packers and the Cardinals, that high-scoring, crazy game. And then Rodgers kind of got... It was like almost a fumble, the ball kicked up in the air, pick, if you remember that. It was just a goofy play that happened, and that kind of reminded me of that. Like Carson Wentz had no business throwing that football. And then who got the game balls?
Game ball, I had to go with Cooper Rush. He did a tremendous job for Dallas in that 2016 win on the road with the Vikings. Nobody caught. He was a player. They were asking questions even before. Who's the backup for Dallas? Well, he sure answered that question, and McCarthy believed in him, and he did a great job out there.
Yeah, he really did in that spot, and that's a game the Cowboys needed, and actually things broke for them the right way over the weekend. So, all right, my friend, outstanding stuff as always. Enjoy the game starting Thursday with Thursday Night Football, and then, of course, Week 9 already in the NFL. Always appreciate you.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Our guy, Lloyd Vance. Quick timeout.